What is happening, y'all? Welcome back to the Media Goose channel. It is I, the Media Goose, your friend Ryan, and the goose is loose, baby. And I am here today with the sixth installment of my MCU review. We are finally talking about the Avengers, the most ambitious crossover film of all time. A film that changed Hollywood really forever. All of the different studios started pursuing this franchise model after the ridiculous success of the Avengers. It made $1.5 billion. That's billion, a B. It broke the box office. It connected a universe in a way that no other movie had ever done before. And thankfully, the rest of the movies before this were all great. The kind of flag bearers who got their own movies all had really great origin stories that led into this. Obviously, we had Iron Man, Cap, Thor, and Hulk as our main four. And we also had Hawkeye introduced in Thor. And I think this is, no, we saw Black Widow and Iron Man too. So all of these characters coming together, but having been introduced already, they handled it all so well. I feel like one of the things that has to be talked about is the script. Apparently, the first version of this movie was going to be very Cap and Tony centric. They were going to be almost the only two perspectives you ever saw. And I think it was so much better to go to this ensemble approach where it's very balanced, which with all of the characters in this movie, that's a real challenge. So the way that they pull it off pretty effortlessly is fantastic. I think that the dynamics between these characters, I mean, we get to literally, this is the ultimate kid in the sandbox with all of his toys. No, we had never had a Justice League movie. We had never had an Avengers. So seeing Captain America and Iron Man, seeing the Hulk and Black Widow, all of this was mind blowing, but it didn't stop there. It was incredible dialogue where none of these characters felt out of tone from what they were in their original movies. Like all of these characters really stood on their own and weren't belittled in any way. There was such a balance between all of the characters. Shield has a massive role in this movie with Nick Fury, Maria Hill. I'm pretty sure this is her introduction, and Phil Coulson. Those three all together as the Shield end of things. That awesome opening. I'm going to kind of start going through the plot a little bit to just talk about my favorite moments. And that excellent opening, I mean, the very, very opening is the leader of the Chitauri army, telling Loki he has to go to Earth to get the Tesseract. And then it is Loki arriving at this shield base underground to take the Tesseract. And seeing him and Fury interact is just excellent. Loki, his makeup and the way that he looks in this scene is so, I don't know, his face looks so angular and like kind of the lighting and the shadows, just he looks really scary and villainous, and it's awesome. Him coming back from that end of Thor when he like falls off the Bifrost and then coming back here, it was really smart, I think, to use Loki in this way. And seeing where Loki is now in the MCU, where he's about to be like the hero of the multiverse, it's just wild to go from this Avengers movie to that. But then we have the awesome action sequence escaping the shield base as it implodes on itself. That's another thing I want to compliment, the excellent action in this movie. It really felt like a summer blockbuster in that way. This awesome escape from the base, the the Hellicarrier fight scene, the final fight, all of the action is really well done, and it feels kind of like, I don't know, the action movies of the time. It has some Mission Impossible to it. It has a little Born Identity to it, but much more, I don't know, kind of popcorn than that. Like, oh, it's an ultimate summer movie, I feel like, in the style and aesthetic. And I mean that in a fully complimentary way. And then we have the team being assembled. And those three Shield members I mentioned, each of them goes and pursues one of the main Avengers. We get that introduction to Natasha manipulating and then beating the crap out of those Russians, and she gets sent to the Hulk. We have Fury going to get Steve and Phil going to get Tony. All of those scenes are excellent. And the dialogue is just excellent, again complementing the writing of this script. And then we get the excellent confrontation in Germany. The Germany scene has such grand scale. It feels, because you have on one end Hawkeye doing his like John Wick, breaking into the back end of this place where he tells Loki he needs that eyeball, and you have Loki go in this, like, I don't know what's happening. It's some kind of fancy event in a art gallery, and then Loki just takes this guy and drives an instrument into his eye and extracts his eyeball, and he gives his monologue. Oh, it's so good. I love the shot where his suit, the illusion of the suit falls and his costume comes on. So clean. And he has an excellent monologue where he talks about how it's humans' natural inclination to be led and that free will is an illusion. And it's really great stuff. And then there's an older man that stands up against Loki, and he says, there are always men like you. And Loki goes to kill this man. And that's when Cap arrives. And Cap and Loki stand off. Steve with the Hitler comparison, saying, the last time that I was in Germany and somebody was kneeling above everybody else, we didn't agree. And then their little fight starts until Tony arrives with AC/DC playing. And it's kind of surreal, that moment, seeing Cap and Iron Man standing side by side, standing down Loki. Oh, it was just, like I said, surreal. It's like, oh my God, we're doing this. And then we have the scene on the whatever airplane, helicopter, shield craft, where the thunder and lightning starts and Thor arrives and takes Loki. And Thor and Loki have this amazing scene, a scene that felt like a scene from a Shakespeare show. Like, it felt like that tone from Thor, that classical feeling where Thor is like, we mourned you, our father mourned you. And Loki is pushing back, and he's really trying to convince himself of everything he's saying, it feels like. Loki really does long for the acceptance of his family, but as he says later in the movie, he feels like he's too far down this path. And he also does still have that entitlement to that glorious purpose he thinks he is owed. And this scene between them, you watch Thor be so vulnerable, and that maturity from Thor compared to the beginning of his movie is beautiful. And then the fight between Tony and Thor starts, and you don't know what's going on here. Let me guess, Shakespeare in the Park? Doth mother know you weareth her drapes? Incredible. That had to be improv by Robert Downey Jr. That line, and then that entire sequence between them where Thor charges up his suit, and also just the absolute ego of Tony to literally start a fight with a god. That's pretty wild. So that whole sequence, and then Steve drops in to be the the level head of the group, and we have the moment of Mjolnir crashing down on the vibranium shield and the blast that it causes. Oh, it was incredible. That whole sequence. Look at this smile. I can't take it off my face. That whole sequence is the heart of this movie. Those interactions between these characters are just so much fun. And then after that, we get to the Hellicarrier. The Hellicarrier is so cool. It is such an awesome set piece. And Shield has been present in a lot of like ensemble or complementary ways, but this is the first time we see like the full might of Shield as this Hellicarrier is unfolded, and all of the heroes start to really meet each other now. And then we get to the first scene of them all together where it's friendly and it's them strategizing, and then Tony shows up. One thing I do want to say before getting into the Tony stuff, I love, because I know in my Incredible Hulk review I mentioned how I preferred what's his name, Edward Norton's portrayal to Mark Ruffalo. And while I still kind of do feel that, that doesn't mean I don't really enjoy Mark Ruffalo. The way he's very awkward and uncomfortable and reserved, but the second they start talking about science, he is comfortable, he is locked in, and I really love that dynamic. And then Tony shows up, he calls Thor Point Break, which is called back to in Thor Ragnarok when he has to sign into the craft, and everything here is excellent. Then we get to all of the kind of break-offs that happen after that initial friendly scene. Tony and Bruce are together in the lab. We have Boy Scout Steve coming in and kind of pushing back against the science bros of Tony and Bruce, who are really pushing back against Fury about how little he's telling them. I love the line where Tony says an intelligence organization afraid of intelligence. Historically, not great. And they both kind of expose the naivety of Steve with that kind of Boy Scout attitude I mentioned. But then Steve, showing his ability to evolve and adapt, goes and does real on-the-ground spy work. Like, going and spying around the ship in a really cool way. And we get kind of the trickster wild card Tony, the way he's eating those blueberries and he passes them to Bruce. That wasn't in the script. That's just Robert Downey Jr. The inquisitive, honest side of Bruce. Then we have that incredible scene between Natasha and Loki. Man, that is such good stuff, where Natasha plays like the ingenue, the naive woman, the same way she had done to the Russians, so that Loki reveals his plan, which I also think reveals a lot about where Loki is at that point. Could you imagine somebody manipulating Loki in this way now? I mean, I guess Sylvie might have. But then he stands up to her at the end. But that dynamic between Natasha and Loki is just so well explored in the writing and the acting performances. And then I love, as we get to the more confrontational stuff with the Avengers, where the cracks start to show in the group, a scene that in a lot of ways is like a hint of, hey, we're probably going to have a civil war one day, where all of these personalities start clashing. And the fact that Loki's scepter is in the room, which we come to learn is the Mind Stone. The thing that gave Wanda, I don't want to say gave, because I tend to believe Wanda, I don't know if they'll ever confirm this, but I think she's a mutant more so than those powers were fully given to her by the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone definitely enhanced what was inherently within her, but even when she was a child and she stopped the Stark martyr from exploding, I think she was powered from birth but the Mind Stone did enhance everything. And the Mind Stone also is what powers Vision. And the Mind Stone being in that room, I think, is kind of like a horror crux in Harry Potter, where it gets everybody on edge. And at one point, you see Tony like doing this. The room is literally getting hotter as these people start to really jab at each other. And it's so excellent, the dynamics between Tony and Steve, when everything between them is just so excellent. When hell, I don't need to look at this. When Steve says, "A man in an iron suit, take that away, and what are you? Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist." Bar. I'll just say it now before we even get to Civil War. I'm Team Tony. Say what you want. I hope it doesn't create division within any watchers, but I'm Team Tony all the way. And when Steve says, "Yeah, well, I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you. You're not the one to make the sacrifice play." And Tony says, they keep going back and forth, but then ultimately Tony gets to, "Everything special about you came out of a bottle." Oh, we are throwing jabs now. Ooh, ooh. It is awesome. And Thor is like, "I thought humans were more evolved than this." Fury at that point is like, "This is all his fault," when they expose that they're going to make weapons. And Thor's like, "How the hell is it my fault?" And he says, "You guys showed up, leveled a small town, and showed us how wildly outgunned we are." And that's a really great kind of thread to pull on, because it ends up being a big part of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which is like 2 movies away. And then when we see Bruce really bubbling up and getting hot, and he takes the scepter, and then they find where the Tesseract is, and that diffuses all of the tension in the room. But then also Hawkeye attacks, and the awesome attack on the Hellicarrier begins, where right before the attack, Tony and Steve are like nose to nose, and Steve's like, "Put on the suit, let's go a few rounds." It is so like broy machismo. It's so, oh, it's hilarious. Maybe not hilarious, it's tense. The seriousness of the situation is there, but just the way these two bring out like the toxic masculinity in each other, and then they immediately have to team up because the mission is at hand. And this entire sequence is excellent. And the Avengers lose, and Loki escapes. And what I wrote down is the fractured Avengers is where they are at this point. And then we get to see them all kind of putting together the pieces of what just happened. And I love the scene with Fury, Steve, and Tony at the table, where he throws the cards and gives that speech where he's like, "There was an idea of a group of remarkable individuals who could fight the battles that we never could." And Tony gets up and leaves. And then we get a scene between Tony and Steve where he's like, "Is this the first time you lost a soldier?" And Tony snaps. "We are not soldiers." And you can see Steve like, oh, like it's a really excellent moment between these two characters where they're learning more about each other. And then you get Tony having the revelation, no, it is personal. He made it personal. He wants an audience. He wants the world to see. He wants a building with his name on it. Son of a bitch. And he realizes it's all happening. And now it's time for the final battle, y'all. This final battle is... oh, I don't even know how to describe it. It's the final battle that affected everything to come leading up to Thanos and Infinity War, because that Chitauri army is from Thanos. Thanos is the big bad enforcing the other to enforce on Loki. And just getting to watch the Avengers avenging, being the heroes that they are. Steve, as the Captain America in the public, giving orders, saving civilians. Tony flying around, taking orders from Steve as well, being a team player. The Hulk not being a bad event. Every other time the Hulk comes out, it's like a failure for Bruce, but this is a hero emerging. And it's all of the dynamics occurring during that final battle. Even Hawkeye and Natasha, two non-superpowered people, being incredibly important to everything unfolding. Selvig having created that backdoor way to shut down the portal. But before we get to that point, just the scope and destruction that takes this city. And I love all the times we hear, I mean, Daredevil season 1 takes place directly after the Battle of New York. Hawkeye, when Kate Bishop's like origin story is her watching Hawkeye in this battle from her apartment that's being destroyed. Not just the execution of this amazing final battle, but the way they used it for years to come to motivate so many different things. And seeing all of these characters be their best selves and live up to what Coulson and Fury thought the Avengers could be. It is all of the jokes and the action and everything else is so great. But this final battle, seeing Tony at his best, Cap at his best, Hulk as a hero, as, oh my God, the moment, that's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry. That might be my favorite moment in the MCU. Like, to this point, it absolutely is. And in my most recent rewatch yesterday, I was taking a big old bong rip as that moment happened, and I highly recommend that experience. It was, and then the amount of little moments throughout the battle when Hulk smashes Thor after they had their fight earlier, but now they're teaming up. But kind of like two brothers, still punches Thor. And then Tony ultimately proving Steve wrong when Steve said, "You won't make the sacrifice play." Tony proves him wrong, because when that nuke gets sent in, it was funny. The way I referred to the council that Fury has to deal with in my notes was Fury and a council of whites. Just some old evil white people, I guess. They send in that nuke, and Tony doesn't even hesitate. And Tony Stark is the heart of this universe. And that Iron Man movie was so important to me when I saw it. And having him be the hero of this movie, the one who does make the sacrifice, is just so beautiful for that character. And also completely shapes his arc moving forward. All of the PTSD and trauma that Tony gets from this experience. He goes through that wormhole to where Thanos is, throws a nuke at Thanos' ship, marking him to Thanos. These are two individuals on a crash course to each other that they don't even necessarily know yet. They are these two opposing forces that will reach a cosmic level eventually. And it all started here with Tony willing to die to save New York City. And then shawarma. This movie is definitely my favorite movie of Phase 1, and I think in my ranking of the MCU this time around, it's going to be hard to take that spot. I mean, two of my top 3 movies are very early in Phase 2. And typically, Iron Man is in my top 3 with those 2 movies, but I think it's going to be the Avengers this time around. Just because of in the same way that, like, what's better, Infinity War or Captain America the First Avenger? Infinity War, because of all of the alarm going off in the parking lot behind my apartment. The ability to have all of these crossovers and all of this scale and scope, it's just kind of hard to top. And the Avengers, this movie is perfect. And it changed Hollywood forever. And I'm going to give you my ranking of the Phase 1 of the MCU now, rather than doing an entire video. As I said, the best movie in Phase 1 is The Avengers, for sure, for me. The Avengers at number 1, Iron Man at number 2, then at number 3, the next 3 movies are all very close. At number 3, I have Thor. At number 4, I have Captain America, the first, I saw my pinky out, the first Avenger. At number 5, I have The Incredible Hulk. And at number 6, I have Iron Man 2. None of those are bad films. I think that if you watched my review of Iron Man 2, I really enjoyed that movie. These are 6 good movies. But The Avengers sits above them all. I love this movie. I love this script. I love the acting performances. I love everything about The Avengers. Let me know down below what you think of The Avengers, guys. I remember the first time I watched this, my freshman year of college, a few months after it came out on DVD. And I hadn't seen all the other movies yet. I was only seeing the Iron Man movies. And this movie just blew me away. And watching it yesterday, it still had that same effect on me. So guys, let me know. Give me your ranking of Phase 1 of the MCU down below. The Goose is out.